Other than the fact that the company that the vendor technology partner you're working with went out of business 5 years ago, what are the recommendations around organizations should begin their migrating technologies, moving to a next solution, other than, hey, the company went out of business a while ago, we can't get anything for that, we should probably fix this. How do you get maybe ahead of that game? When should you get ahead of that game?
It's not yet, so here's the other thing that's happening, and I didn't even allude to it because it wasn't part of the, kind of discussion, but because we kind of just went into this stuff is migrating. We didn't talk a little bit about one step back, which is why is it migrating, right? And that has a lot to do with the fact that business is now driving a lot of these initiatives. Before, it was this huge tech driven, my CIO had a plan and everything was driven and the business would get what the business got and they would like it. Right. Well, the business basically said, you know what? I haven't gotten crap from you guys in a long time. And what I have gotten has been kind of crappy. So not interesting. I'm doing this myself now. And obviously that's a little bit of a, hyperbolized type of environment. But the reality is, and a lot of folks call it shadow IT, which I hate. I absolutely hate that term because that's derogatory. Right? These are folks trying to do their job better and faster. And if IT is getting in their way, they're taking it upon themselves. That's not shadow IT, right? That's business IT, right? So the business folks are driving a lot of these technology environments. So to me, it's less about, kind of how do I get a catalyst to get folks to move, and more about how do I ride the tiger? Right? I mean, this thing is out there. It's galloping. You turn the wrong way, we'll get a, whatever, Joe Exotic, kind of situation. I didn't remember Joe Exotic from, kind of the early days of the pandemic, right? Tiger King. That was, it's like, oh my God, wasn't that like 15 years ago? Yeah, no, it was like 15 months ago. But in pandemic land, it probably felt like 15 years ago. But you're trying to ride the tiger from that standpoint, because this stuff is happening. What you're trying to do, and that gets me, I can really talk a little bit about what the role of security folks is moving forward, right? And it's not this idea that you're going to do security this way and it's going to be my way and we're going to no. Well, what about this? Nope. Can we do it that way? No way. Not happening. Not happening on my watch. Right? That didn't work. So I've got this thing, I call it the 3 G's. The first G is guidance. The role of the security person is morphing increasingly to helping the business folks and other technology implementers understand how to do things securely as they move towards these new environments: DevOps, SaaS, public cloud, containers, etc. Governance would be the second piece of that, which is helping to establish and understand the policies that are going to govern how it is that we use data, right? Who can access it? Where can it be? All those kind of things, right? So guidance, this is what security means. Governance, these are the policies that we're going to accept within our organization. And the third G is guardrails. So there are just some things, I call them the no-nos, right? There are just some no-nos, like with the kids, right? Oh, no, can't do that. Why, Dad? Nope. No. Right. So in our technology world, we have some no-nos as well. And what I want is to build guardrails around those no-nos, so that's a fire first, ask questions later type of situation. In data, it's, open storage bucket. That's the easiest one to really understand. There's very few situations in your environment that you should have an open to the public storage bucket. So if something is open, close it. Right? Oh, but so that may interfere with somebody. Don't care, because that creates a situation where I could lose a bunch of data. So if I see an open bucket, I'm going to close the bucket. And then you can tell me why I was wrong later after I've closed the bucket and protected our organization, right? So guidance, governance, guardrails, that gives me an idea that it's much more an influence business moving forward, right? Very little on the enforcement side, with the exception of a handful of guardrails that represent protection against these no-nos that I keep talking about. It's not about building an empire. It's not about having my massive SOC, in place with my empire of minions that are out there doing their thing. It's really about how do I enable the business to do things better, faster, and more securely.
Any other words of caution or advice for organizations who are either getting ready into that migration tech process or well into it, how they can make sure they can be successful? And how do you make that migration process go along smoothly so you can look back at it and say, yep, this worked, let's do it, let's get on to the next project?
you can't make it go smoothly, right? Because there are a lot of other um, things that are going to impact what ultimately happens. You also can't stop it, right? So what we're going to try to do is do it in a considerate, thoughtful, managed way to migrate things, right? Have a plan, right? Not analysis paralysis plan, because if you spend too long, they're going to do it anyway, right? But a point where you can get and build the credibility to have the influence to hopefully get the right structures in place as you start moving things forward, right? But understand, again, kind of ride the tiger. I hadn't used that term before, but I like it, right? Because it's kind of visceral. There's all sorts of entendres in there that I also like. But again, I mean, I think that's really what this is about, because it can get uncontrolled and bloody if you're not careful, or it can be, again, fairly smooth. Um, hey, right, it worked for Siegfried and Roy for about 35 years, until it didn't. So obviously, when you're trying to ride the tiger, you can never take your eye off the ball, or else it can end badly. But you really do have to, both accept the fact that this is going to happen. How can we make sure that it happens in the most effective, efficient, and secure way, and start building those relationships to facilitate that right now, because there's no time to waste. If this stuff, by the way, this stuff's already happening. So it's not like, it's rare that I'll run into a place and like, oh, we're still all on-prem and we don't use any SaaS and we don't use any public cloud. I'm like, what? Are you Rip Van Winkle and you just woke up from 100-year sleep? I mean, you just don't see that anymore. So it really is about, trying to get ahead of it, making sure that people don't make just awful architectural decisions, but they will, right? So it's, what am I going to do to, again, get things moving in a direction that I can feel comfortable saying I can convincingly protect this information? Because ultimately, again, back to the first thing, Bill, or one of the first things, right? Never lose sight of the mission, right? And that's protecting the corporate data and doing what we need to make sure that that happens.